Welcome to the Now, I'm Meg Turney.
I'm John Reisinger.
Grab those lightsabers, everyone. We got tons of EA news today, including some info about upcoming Star Wars games.
This news comes from the cheap pizza buffet equivalent of video game news, investor calls.
EA just finished a phone bone with its investors yesterday that covered Q4 of 2016, which ended in March. And we did the boring work of, by we, I mean Eddie, did the boring work of digging through the super long transcript, so you don't have to.
Yesterday, they talked about Battlefield 1 being the biggest and most innovative game in the series. They gave a slightly more definitive release window of Titanfall 2 for later this year, and they even talked about a couple of new IPs, some of which we'll see very soon, and that was in quotation marks.
Yes, it was. However, the big headline from yesterday's briefing is none other than Battlefront 2, which was officially confirmed by EA. The next game in the Star Wars Battlefield mashup will be out next year.
That's cool. And thank the maker, it'll also cover the new films in the Star Wars universe.
EA CFO Blake Jorgensen said during the call, next year we will see Star Wars Battlefront back with bigger and better worlds because we now have the new movies to work off of, not just the historical movies that we used before.
Better worlds? Like were the old worlds like
They didn't even care. They're like, oh, we already used that up.
Fuck the old worlds.
Put it out there.
That next year could mean EA's financial year, which starts in April of 2017, meaning the game might not be out until spring of 2018 for normal people. Or it could mean the actual calendar year 2017, in which case it'd probably launch sometime next holiday.
I mean, anybody could have guessed that we'd have a new Battlefront games until, of course, EA ultimately reboots it as Battlefront 1, but whatever, it's nice to have some confirmation that we're getting another one.
As for whether or not the new Battlefront will focus on just the new movies, or pull in from a range of movies the way previous versions of Battlefront did, I want a Gungan battle. That's anybody's guess. EA and DICE would actually be fairly limited in what they could use from the new movies if the game is slated for holiday 2017, since Episode 8 doesn't come out until December 2017.
They could, however, give us one location from Episode 8 that features heavily in whatever trailer we're eventually going to get from that movie, sort of how the last Battlefront featured the Battle of Jakku and post-launch DLC. Other than that, though, the options, again, fairly limited.
You don't want the game to spoil the film before it's out.
Right.
However, it would have a few options to pull from Episode 7, like the battle at Maz Kanata's castle on Takodana. Nope, didn't get that. Takodana. Fuck it. Or the showdown at Starkiller Base.
You could also grab a few locations from the upcoming Rogue One, or like I like to say, Hunger Games in space. A lot of people, that pissed off so many people. From that trailer, we've seen a number of new spots that will probably make for some great Battlefront maps, including a beachfront massacre at the hands of some AT-ATs.
Beachfront massacre. Sure, why not? Really, it's most likely that Battlefront 2 will span locations from all the movies, pulling in the prequels, original trilogy, new trilogy, and side stories, and who knows, maybe that Christmas special.
No, it's no secret that DICE and EA were just a bit rushed in the creation of the original Battlefront, with very little time to develop a game that had to launch alongside the debut of The Force Awakens. Most of the fan complaints were about the game had to do with available content. They wanted more.
There's no story. I wanted a story. Give me a story, EA. And even EA seems to have acknowledged that by omission in their earnings call, shying away from talking about Battlefront's overall engagement. I don't know if I did the emphasis on that correctly for that sentence, but we're gonna go for it.
You nailed it. Nowadays, it's fairly common for publishers to do some self-stroking about player engagement. That's a real thing. With multiplayer titles like Battlefront, how many people are still playing it? How many DLCs we DLC'd? How many transactions
we DLC'd, you
we
DLCers.
microed? We had Exhibit in there. They talk about all of it.
It's the new metric that everyone's most concerned about, because the more players are coming back, the more money for everybody involved.
Yes, EA went out of their way not to mention those numbers for Battlefront, so we can assume, not so good. They talked about it for The Sims and for their sports games, but obviously weren't as forthcoming with Star Wars, instead focusing on numbers shipped.
They reported that Battlefront has now shipped 14 million units, which is pretty big, and well ahead of EA's projections by this point in the financial year.
But considering EA didn't focus on how many people are currently playing the game, it's probably safe to say that Battlefront just doesn't have that many players any longer. At the moment, SWB Stats shows Battlefront currently has 27,000 players a day across all platforms, which barely cracks Steam's top 10.
Bringing it down by each platform makes that number much, much sadder.
So yeah, hopefully EA has learned their lesson with Battlefront, and you'll also have to give them, though, a bit of credit. They didn't have a ton of time, so maybe now that they have lots of time, it'll be better.
Gungans. Moving on from Battlefront, we also got a bit of word from about EA's other new Star Wars games, so saying we can expect one per year for the next 3 or 4 years. That's fucking cool.
Yeah, here's what EA had to say about that subject. The cadence should be at least every year, along with the cadence of the large and small movies that Disney is doing, or side movies that Disney is doing, relative to Star Wars.
Since we know that both Visceral and Respawn are working on the next big titles for EA's Star Wars releases, that helps us put together a bit of a timeline for those releases.
Battlefront came out in fiscal year 2016, but it looks like Battlefront 2 will be in fiscal year 2017, so our best guess is that Visceral will be 2018, maybe Battlefront 3 in 2019, ahead of Episode 9, and then Respawn's game in 2020?
At least that's the release schedule EA seemed to be hinting at. They kept talking about action franchises, mixing in Star Wars talk at the same time, so it gets a little muddy and intentionally vague.
Those shifty C-level executives with their expensive suits and double talk, double plus on good. Yeah.
As for non-Star Wars games, EA has also said during the call that they'll be debuting another new IP debuting soon, which will be releasing next year. An E3 reveal, perhaps?
Please, although now it's EA Play, so it's not, E3 anymore. EA is one of the many companies that are sort of picking up their franchises and going home this year instead of attending E3.
Regardless, I used to do it with my street hockey stuff.
Bullshit.
Took my stuff and went home if I was losing. Regardless of where it debuts, this could be EA's brand new Assassin's Creed style franchise that they've been talking about since last year, headed up by former Ubisofter Jade Raymond.
So hey, maybe they'll be playing EA's Assassin's Creed knockoff as soon as 2017. Or we will, or everyone will. Then again, it might be the action franchise they were saying that wouldn't be out until 2020 or 2021, which would suck.
Some are speculating this could mean that EA plans on unveiling a new Star Wars game at E3 instead, but that doesn't really jive with EA's fiscal calendar. It would give them 2 major Star Wars releases this year, and it sounds like they're trying to avoid that.
Plus, they've already got a crowded slate with Titanfall 2, Battlefield 1. They're both coming out this holiday season, along with next year's looking already crowded for them with sci-fi shooters, and Mass Effect Andromeda has been pushed to 2017, and Battlefront 2 probably be hitting that time as well, so they got a lot of shit going on.
So basically we're complaining that EA may have too many big games coming out too quickly. First world gamer problems, #yo-yo.
Please
don't know why I did that hashtag.
You don't do it. And please don't be broken, that's all I care about. So what do you guys think about Battlefront 2? Where do you want to go? Let us know in the comments down below.
I want to play as Anakin.
I want to be the chosen one.
I want the other team to play as Anakin so I can just slice him down. For future earnings, call, breakdowns, and Star Wars video game news, like the video and subscribe to the No.
John, at some point in your life, did someone say, I like your no reads, but you just don't yell enough. I just wish you yelled some more.
I'm very vocal.
I'm having a great time.
I'm just a boisterous person. Don't challenge me, Kate.
Oh, Sassenach.
I'll fuck this up. And by that I mean I'll do this entire read Scottish.
You'll do it.